you just say from what your views are. So firstly, a bit about Frank Risk. Obviously, you're an insurance company, but you also boutique. You've got a lot of customers, and you're seeing. I think what I'm looking for here is probably you're seeing a bit of a trend, obviously, from some of the activity we've talked about recently. So, who's Frank Risk, and what sort of customers do you have? What are you sort of seeing as a trend in the market, perhaps?
Yep. Okay. So obviously with Frank Risk, we've got offices. We've got operated out of 4 offices in Auckland, Wellington, Hamilton, and Matamata. Certainly in the kind of the corporate market and even going down to the SME, we see kind of like probably a greater awareness, but being driven from the governance point of view. Around kind of checks and balances towards the exposure for kind of like internal crime. So definitely it's actually something that historically we've kind of like struggled as a concept, because people have taken it as a bit of a personal affront when you actually raise the issue of potential crime within their business. But now that's actually probably changing a little bit, because when they're being asked about it at a governance level, they're kind of wanting answers. So kind of like seeing that change slowly. But as a topic, people don't like to talk about crime, or they don't like to think that it could actually happen, or they could be ripped off by the people they work with and eat lunch with.
Yep. And what about external threats? Obviously, that's a lot more these days. Invoice, email compromises, and external fraud threats.
Definitely. So yeah, we have had clients that have actually been defrauded through social engineering means, and I think there's definitely an awareness out there, and also as advisors to risk management advisors to our clients, we're talking about their potential exposure and possible solutions around that. It's certainly something that's kind of capturing the media's attention. So it's a discussion that we actually have to have with our clients, and we are doing that.
Okay, cool. From Frank Risk's perspective, you started with Frank Risk using Vigilance initially some time ago now, which is great, and you've added your new entities as the business has grown. What was the first motivation for? Because it's quite a different market today. What was the sort of motivation? For some years ago that you adopted Vigilance?
Well, we liked it in the fact that we had a lot of payments going out for us, and with an organisation actually just having those checks and balances. I think the other real driver was the fact that we were going to be given a report that we could actually use, at governance level if required, that would actually just give people some comfort around the fact that, because there are always going to be payments that actually need just some further verification, and that's not to say that there's anything wrong with the payments, but hey, why are we doing this? So you're getting that, but you're also you're able to actually front up to a board meeting and actually say that if there's been anything like that you have actually done your DD and actually made sure that it's actually kosher.
Cool. Okay.
Because I think we had a lot of payments going out to insurers as well. So every month we will settle the insurers, and normally very big payments. So we wanted to make sure that they're just a double check to make sure that none of those bank accounts have been changed and zero or anything like that. Or that we, like, employees and creditor batches and stuff like that when they shouldn't be. Maybe, like, we trust our staff, but as you grow, it's just good to have that extra layer of protection to double check everything before the payments go out.
And it's a useful part of our routine rather than actually, you know, kind of like looking at things once they've been uploaded as a batch to the bank. We're actually having a discussion about them before they even hit the bank.
Nice.
So you know, yeah.
It's an independent separation of duty, isn't it? It's
It's a useful management tool in that respect, that you are actually having reviewing it before you actually put in your code to actually process the payment.
You don't always check every single bank account number against who you're paying. So it's just easy to have something that does that for you without having to manually check every digit.
Yeah, I mean, it's virtually nigh on impossible. It's not humanly possible to check all those basic things as a pass every time you're doing it. It's just not possible when you're doing volume of payments, because it's often in a very small window. Okay, so how would you guys describe, because it's very easy for us to describe what we think vigilance does, but from your perspective as a user, if you were explaining to somebody else with didn't know about vigilance, how would you explain it to them? What would you say its core benefit is, and you know, in a nutshell, what does it do?
Well, we do actually explain vigilance quite regularly to clients, and yeah, I describe it as like a management tool, something that to give them more comfort around making their payment systems watertight. So you know, as you just said, I mean, like it's impossible for any, you know, one person or, you know, kind of to actually go through and actually verify every nth detail with regarding to the, you know, the invoices that they're paying on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
And actually having something that actually can do that for them. And I also kind of like quote to them something that Dale quoted to me, you know, in the early days. You know, he said that, you know, that on occasions you've actually run vigilance batches through historic payment batches through vigilance, and you know, to you know, the surprise of the user, there has been occasions where there have been invoices that have actually stopped. So I think that, you know, kind of people don't, you know, kind of people tend to be kind of quite, in terms of like their jobs, they can quite often be quite insular and actually think, well, this is what I've got to do. And I think that actually making a statement like that actually kind of makes them actually think, well, that's something I hadn't actually, you know, kind of hadn't actually thought of, and the fact that you know, there could be invoices that we're paying that we're probably, you know, have, you know, kind of there's been some kind of aspect to them. So yeah, I think when we kind of in short, when we're actually describing it to clients, we're saying it's a management tool that actually gives them more, you know, kind of comfort around, you know, the payments when they're actually kind of like processing them, but also, you know, there are other aspects that maybe they hadn't considered.
Yeah, actually, it's an interesting point that you know, payments, payroll, creditors is it's a straight through process that's almost done almost by rote, isn't it?
Yep.
And so vigilance will stop and say, hey, does this look right? So it does sort of pull you up and go, oh yeah, actually, because it's just a process. It's done multiple times through a month, and it is very rote as opposed to, so you do get sort of conditioned to just not ticking the boxes per se, but it does highlight that for you, so you're not just ticking the boxes.
Yeah.
I explain it as a fraud prevention software that so it will highlight highlight any payments, like if there's been changes in bank accounts or employees and creditor batches and things like that. So yeah, it just brings your attention to those anomalies so that you can review them before it gets uploaded to the batch. It's like a extra layer of protection. That's how I would explain it.
And like Andy said before, as early as possible in the process. So
yeah, before
once you're at the bank, you're just looking at numbers and you're just approving.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads to the next question, which you sort of answered, but has Vigilance detected fraud in across your organisations to date, or errors?
I can't say there's been nothing fraudulent.
No.
But there certainly have been, kind of times we've got reports that have come through the red or an amber, and we've kind of followed up to see where that is. There's been nothing. But remember that, kind of we are a pretty closely held organisation, so the people actually doing the processing all have actually financial interest in it.
Yeah.
We're probably reasonably robust in that regard.
Yeah, but it definitely has highlighted employees and creditor batches and stuff like that. It doesn't like bring things to your attention, but yeah, by no means have we stumbled across any fraudulent payments as such. So
yeah, so it's more, and it's more that comfort. I mean, it's ironic, really. I have to say, you guys would appreciate it, given your insurance. Those that adopt Vigilance, they're looking to improve their processes. It's less about fraud. There is protection, that's important, but it's having that extra layer of protection to avoid having fraud in the first place. And it's because those very businesses are well buttoned down anyway, and that's why why they're adopting.
But even if we haven't actually experienced it firsthand, we've actually spoken to people who are in that kind of that state of despair when it does happen.
Yeah, and you don't want to be in that position.
No. Strong motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So you've become quite you're centrally controlled, but you've got multiple entities now. So who's using it across the organisation? How many users? What are they doing? What's sort of the structure?
So we probably have four users. So myself and the business manager at Initio use Vigilance for uploading and submitting the batches, and then Andy and one of the other directors can authorise those batches before we then upload them to the bank. So it's like separation of duties. So yeah, 4 users across the entire organisation.
Michael hasn't been authorised.
Michael has, yeah.
Okay,
so you and Michael do the.
But Renee and Michael, just
Renee doesn't.
Yeah, he doesn't, but he's been authorised to. No, okay, yeah.
So, what would be the key benefit and reason for continuing to use Vigilance? You'll probably explain that, but just to recap, what would be the single reason for continuing to use Vigilance?
It works really well. Yeah, no, we like it. We like the comfort it gives us around payments. And we've discussed in the past, there are a few things that we would love to be able to kind of like integrate with it. That would give us more comfort, but but it definitely kind of adds value.
Yeah, I'll give you the opportunity for that question in a minute, because we're always interested in innovating and what we can do. Okay, so what sort of organisations do you think are best suited for Vigilance? I mean, my view is everybody, but
yeah,
I'd agree.
Anyone that's making payments, which is everybody.
Definitely, but particularly people, particularly organisations where the people who are actually controlling the process aren't actually stakeholders in the business.
Yep. Okay. So just a sort of few wrap-up questions. Sorry?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, even if you are a stakeholder, there's still social engineering, so you can still receive an email
Absolutely.
from someone who's saying, we've changed our bank account, and take it as legitimate, update the bank account, make a payment to the new supplier bank account, and then the money's gone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I'd agree, but yeah, I think that, you know, kind of with internal stakeholders, they're less inclined to try and do something internally within the business. And secondly, if you're just basically turning up to work, you know, 8:30 to 5, you're probably less, but pardon, yeah, well, the expression of vigilant. But, you know, like if you're under pressure to just get basically these payments processed, and you're under time pressure, whereas, you know, kind of when it's your business, you tend to kind of like see it more as your money.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a really good point. If your staff, if you're operational staff, but one of the things I think you don't have as an operational staff with no stake in the business other than you're an employee, is that this protects your integrity as well, because it's like financial health and safety. Because if something goes wrong, there is no checks and balances other than vigilance, because other than that, that's the typical manual process that businesses adopt. So it's providing some security, and certainly it discourages any sort of behaviour, I would venture to say. So in terms of annual expenditure, and you don't have to answer these questions if you don't want to, but annual expenditure, I mean, in terms of volume you're putting through vigilance, it'll be pretty significant.
Yes, most definitely, because we put all our insurer payments through vigilance. So on the 20th of the month, we're talking sometimes a couple of mil.
So we're putting through tens of millions a year.
Yeah.
And so you're a classic good example, I think. Your high volume transactions and your high value transactions, as opposed to a few transactions of high value which are easy to check. You're doing high volume and expensive transactions. So you're in the sweet spot of what I would think is a good customer for vigilance. So what would you change? Unfortunately, just frozen on the screen. What would you change in vigilance? I know we've talked about bordereau payments before. I might just actually see if I can get a better connection here, guys.
But unstable.
Sorry, I think we've got a pretty poor connection, probably my end. Hang in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to switch to my phone because the house internet isn't that great at the moment. It's getting a bit of a pummeling. Okay. Is that a little bit better?
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah,
cool. Sorry about that.
a couple of things that I'd probably change. Two-factor authentication. That was when we enabled that, it was a bit of a pain because you were getting codes. It kicks you out quite regularly. So when you were getting codes every time, and I think you were getting them every time you switched between entities as well. I think.
Oh, okay. So one of the things we've improved with two-factor, if you go back to it, is like with the bank, and when I go to BNZ and use two-factor, one of the things that frustrated me with two-factor we had was that you had to go and get the number, then put the number in, and then hit enter and enter the cursor in the box. Now you can go in and you can just put the number in. As soon as you put the last digit, it goes straight in. So that was a recent improvement. Good to know about if you're flicking between companies. I would have thought.
I can't recall. I just remember there was a lot of codes, and I thought it was flicking between companies, but I might have to turn it back on again and see. But we ended up turning it off because it was just a bit tedious to be on. Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, but the other thing was we still haven't done it and found a workaround for refunds yet, client refunds, because they're not something that we pay to the client regularly. They're one-off, and yeah.
But that is probably the biggest area for potential fraud that we would actually have.
Yeah. So this is the border rate payments? No.
No. Refunds to clients. So, and you know, kind of there have been, and this has happened, and it's happened quite a few times with other people in our industry, where a client actually cancels their policy, and the unused premium does, that would normally be refunded to them, doesn't get refunded to them. It goes into fraudulently goes into somebody else's account.
Yeah.
And that's a limitation with the CRM system that we are using. I believe it's not a vigilance issue. So the CRM system that we use doesn't hold the client's bank account details, and the report you generate from that in terms of client refunds are not ones that you could just plug and play into the bank. So then you'd have to manually input all the information into Xero. So it's like just adding on a whole heap of unnecessary work. So we just go straight to the bank for the refunds, unfortunately.
So in simple terms, if you could go into vigilance and have your client's bank details in there, and you had them there, so you could just generate the refund in vigilance, or would you still need to generate it in Xero, or could you? No, you can't do it at the moment. I'm just thinking about, is that a way of doing it? Because you need to register somewhere. Because then you could do, because we could generate a batch file from that.
So doing it straight into vigilance rather than into Xero, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, Xero, you could make just a single, payment to record that transaction in Xero. But your problem is you've got all these individual payments. You want to make sure they go to the right party.
That's right.
Go back. That's right. So you're putting them in Xero at the moment. You have to put them in Xero at the moment. Yeah.
Straight to the bank. No.
Straight to the bank, and then you just put a single line in Xero saying refunds for the month.
Well, per transaction, because obviously, like, we're refunding to a whole clients, so there might be 20 refunds on the 20th of the month to all these different clients that when we've just asked them what their bank account numbers are, basically. So
your CRM is something you're not going to migrate away from, because that'll be quite highly customized around your processes. But that's where the refunds are being collected in the CRM. And
yes, they're processed in the CRM, and then but the CRM doesn't hold the client's bank account details. So we just request.
What if there was a customized field that you could collect the bank account number in the CRM? Sorry, we're just freezing up again there. What if there was a customized field? If you could have another field, if your CRM allows it, to add the customer's bank account number, it doesn't.
No, and it's in its sunset years as an application for us. So we'll be.
Sorry. A sunset application for you and you're looking at something else. You'll be
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
to change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so one of the things you should look at is obviously you'll be on your short list of things is your new application, your new CRM, that you can collect the bank account number against the client. And then if you can export that file, we could customize and convert that to a format that the bank accepts and check the bank account number on the way through. One of the things we're looking at doing is holding more bank account numbers in Vigilance so that becomes the repository where you keep all your bank account numbers. And so that if you saw a change coming, because you'll have clients that you might give a refund who legitimately change their bank account number, but you still need to capture that and then change it, give them the ability to change it maybe. So I don't actually think that's a hard problem to solve. If you can output a file, we could convert it into a batch format and you can still approve it through Vigilance and we check the bank account number on the way through.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the batch file formats are not difficult. We can magic something up in a few hours and validate it. Oh, that's been really, really helpful, guys. Really appreciate it. Everything else ticking along okay?
Yeah. It's all in all,